Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki
वाहिगुरु जी की
Fateh.
फतेह।
My name is Gurinder Singh Johal. I am your host of the JMC Chronicles. This is episode 11 of the podcast. This is coming a week later than usually comes out. It usually comes out the second week of each month, but as you can tell, for the third time, I am in a different setting. For all the listeners who have been listening and watching from the beginning, you can see that I've been in three different rooms now. Hopefully, this is the room that I'll be for the next year because this is my new place out in Davis. We are back in person this year in some capacity, almost in full capacity, but um, yeah, now I moved here. This episode, we're joined by a very special guest. I will let him introduce himself. But this episode will be a little bit different from our previous episode because previous episode we try to highlight the youth activists and their individual stories a little bit more. But like this is very much also like for youth activists and how much they did and how like their work at the campus of UC Davis. And I'll let Harfateh introduce himself and take it away.
वाहिगुरु जी की खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. Thank you so much for having me here, Gurinder. I appreciate it. My name is Harfateh Singh. I'm a UC Davis graduate, class of 2014. I started in 2009. And over the last 10, 12 years, I've been involved as a student, as an alumnus, as a community organizer, you can say. I've been a community sevadar. I've been involved with getting the UC Punjabi course started. And as a student, I was a member of the Sikh Culture Association at UC Davis. And then I was also active in the ASUCD. I'm a civil engineer by profession, got my bachelor's at Davis. I chose water and environmental because of my upbringing in Punjab, where I saw Punjab suffering through water issues, and now California, same thing over the last decade or decade and a half, the droughts. Uh, so anything about transportation or water, I'm always down to talk about. But more than that, Punjabi is one of my. I love Punjabi culture. I love Sikhi, and Punjabi as a language bridges both Punjabi culture and Sikhi, and it's I have a sincere appreciation and a most profound regard and respect for the language. So I'm here just to talk about how the class kind of came to be, what the role some of the students, the alumni, organizers, community sevadar, community leaders played. So try to give a snapshot, provide some background, provide some institutional memory, so y'all can see how it took us so many years and how uh, challenging but rewarding the process has been. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no. Again, the pleasure is all ours for hosting and having you join us today. But I would like to like go to the early days. I know there was a like we were talking a little bit before we started here, a little bit talking about that even before you had started knowing of your efforts and you starting your efforts. There was efforts way before you started. A little touch base of like anything you know about that and like how long ago that was, just because like even though like they weren't successful in maybe their first attempt, like they still had like some initiative to do it, and there was some like okay, we want to do this. There's some root see that like we want to do have this happen here at Davis. So talk a little bit about that and like how like the early steps, the very early steps about this came to be.
Um, Before I start, I want to say that I think it's not a misstatement to say that UC Davis has the biggest, largest Punjabi population among all UCs. I don't think that's an unfair statement to make. I grew up in a pind, so Davis feels like a pind में बहुत अपराध जी महसूस होती है थे.
Yeah.
Um, so I started in 2009. I didn't really become active in this cause until like 2011, 12. But we heard that late 90s, early 2000s, there was a push among some of the community activists, leaders from Sacramento region to get Punjabi classes started at Davis. Kind of like what we see now at Sac State, which have been which has been a little bit differently structured program. There is an issue about like whether it has the funding or not, doesn't have the funding, that comes up. And they wanted something at a more reputable place like UC Davis because there are so many of people there, Hannah.
Yeah.
So we heard that some community leaders tried to do that, but we first, I started 2009. In fall 2010, SCA, Sikh Cultural Association, was founded. You all might recognize some of these names, but Vikram Singh Khalsa, who goes by Amazing, the magician, he was instrumental in that. I think Angad Singh, Ravneet, Ravneet Singh, Vichi Rehal, few others. I may be blanking on their names right now, but they were the driving force behind this, Sukhveer Kaur. And one of the reasons we did that was it kind of like named a Sikh Culture Association to kind of like bridge this sort of, you can say, tussle or tension between what's seen as often as like Sikhi part of our identity and the Punjabi part of our identity. And we had a very successful start. And I wasn't even one of the board members in the beginning. I'll be honest. I was just involved as a member. And there were like discussions. We would do like Sikh discussions. We'll do discussions on Sikh history. There were like plays and everything. They were attended by 60, 70 people. And the Kirtanites, like when I started, only 15, 20 people used to come. And then we would play Mafia afterwards. I think you might recognize the name Ekagar Singh. He was still at UC Davis at that time. Amarbir Singh was still there. And then I'm saying it was just a great way to build community. But as 2009 moved into 2010 and 11, when SCA was founded, more and more parents started doing Langar Seva, right? We had local families from Davis, Sacramento do Langar Seva. Like my family came all the way from Bay Area to do Langar Seva a couple times. And 50, 60, 70 people attending each Kirtan night every 2 weeks. It just brought the community together every 2 weeks, right? Despite no matter the midterms, no matter the finals, like especially like like you're stressed out with like the kirtan, the ambience, the mahal was just so rewarding, so amazing. And then in 2000, I think it was fall 2012, we had a lecture from Gurinder Singh Maan, who was at UCSB, and then he left UCSB under a cloud, and I won't get into that, but his lecture kind of brought this idea for students on campus that maybe we should have Punjabi or Sikh studies on campus. And there was a lot of interest, but the first roadblock was that it was UCs look for long-term commitment, and they also look for long-term money endowment commitment, like $1.5, $2 million type of thing. And it's a little unfortunate that a community doesn't always see this long-term investments as worthy causes. I mean, we don't always see the benefit of this. Now, the main benefit that we thought would be, by that time I was board member at SCAS, and then BIPSHI was was growing exponentially, and like so it kind of brought us all together. And coincidentally, like some folks became with ASU City student involved with the government, student government. So we approached MESA, the Middle East and South Asian Studies program. And I still remember, like it feels like yesterday, but it was like January 2013. I remember the first time I knocked on somebody's door to talk about this. It was the MESA Student Affairs Officer, Shyama Kover. And she was very helpful. She even came and spoke to her, just wanted discussions about the community, like what it will take to get this class started. The interest was there, but the money part was always the issue, right? So we kept organizing, I think from Sacramento area at that time, Sardar Omkar Singh Bindra, he was trying to push Dr. Gurdev Singh Khush, who's a big asset to the community at UC Davis. Like he's a phenomenal person, and he tried to lobby, but again, the issue was always how are we gonna raise funds for this? And then, I was in my 4th year by then already, and then we set up some more limited goals. Like we moved more into on-campus organizing. SCA became more involved with like other associations on campus, MSA, Muslim Student Association. We became involved with the ASUCD to like combat on-campus hate and all that stuff. But what the benefit of that was that we built alliances, we built connections with other communities, right? We saw how successful the Arabic program was. The Arabic program had only started a few years ago. It's been phenomenally successful. And I do want to mention this, that I have a lot of I have a lot of Muslim friends. I have so much respect for them, even whether they are from like their families are from the African part of the world, or whether they're from the Middle East, or what we call West Asian part, or whether they're South Asian. Most of them know Arabic because Quran is written in Arabic, and that kind of like it poses an uncomfortable question to us. Why don't we show the same love for Punjabi? It's learning a language is extremely hard. Learning any language, like even if you're coding, any language is really hard. But why can't we show that sort of commitment that they do? That's why Arabic has been so successful. Their enrollment has been like very steady. So by the time 2013, 14 hit, like I graduated in 2014, but I still kept coming back. There was still like students that were very passionate on campus with SCA. And then like a year later, I met Dr. Nicole Ranganath, and then she was doing research on Punjabi Americans who had arrived in, or Punjabis or Sikh workers who had arrived in California late 1890s, early 1900s. And she was connected to me by Rajbir Singh Judge, who I think was a professor now at CSU Long Beach. Another great person. I was another great person that I got to meet. So Nicole, like just start talking, and we were like, and she's like, did you know there were like Punjabi farm workers in Davis like 100 years ago? And like, what? Like, early 1900s. Like she showed me these records, and then she was working on the Punjabi American Digital Archive, and so we kind of made a partnership through that, working on translation and everything. And from there, I got to meet some other community leaders, and the Punjabi class stuff rolled on. And here I'll pause and let you ask me something else before I get into the
No.
next.
I like I said, like I've said this before, like I'm here every episode, so you're always going to hear my voice. So it's always, I want to let like the guests take the majority of the time, and this is very interesting to know because a lot of those things that you just touched upon right now when you were talking are very much true to this day. Like for us to do anything at Davis now as JMC, we have to build alliances, and that's something that we've in the past, like the past couple of years, we've like overlooked. Like we keep trying to build them, but like it's been there's not an initiative amongst ourselves to try to do those. But like once we do build those like alliances and relationships, it's much easier to have power and have more say at the campus. And I feel like that's something that I think I'll let you continue how it went, but like I feel like that's like, if you guys were just still again to go by your guys selves trying to if SCA or SSA, if they were trying to at the time just do it by themselves, it was going to be a very tough and even harder challenge. But because you guys had support, and also there was a different like there is already a blueprint, like how you said for like the Arabic classes, there was already there was a blueprint that could be easily followed, and there was already the same amount, more or less, the want for it or the need or the interest for it. It was just more about like how the campus could accommodate for it, and sometimes that's usually like you to have the campus come around on an idea or come around on an initiative, you have to have more than just one group of people. You have to have multiple, and you have to show up in numbers. Usually that's how it works, and for like it's like the unfortunate truth of campuses. But like unless you show up in numbers and you have numbers, and the other part, the hand in hand that goes with that is like if somebody stands with you, you have to stand with them as well. Like I know, like that's like a big part that some people overlook. Just because someone has your back for something, and then you better, and like you expecting them to show up for yours. The only way that you're gonna have that mutual respect and mutual want to help each other is if you do the same for them. You can't just always have them come to you and then you do nothing in return. So it's like I feel like that's something, again, is like something not just only JMC and not only Jakara as an organization, but like a lot of other like folks in the Punjabi community. Like when we need help from other communities, we have to also be there for those communities as well. And it more or less, this story like highlights that very much so. And I know you touched upon like the very early process of you and like how that came to be. just talk a little bit now about like how the Punjabi class, like concrete, like how that actually like began.
Yeah.
Like what was the first year that like it was actually brought up on the campus, or like the first year that it was actually like on the desk of the chancellor, or like how did like where was it like what was the moment where it was actually going to be somewhat in concrete? And I would like
So,
to like touch on that a little bit.
so Gurinder, like I mentioned to you earlier, I have my notes here, and to the listeners, whoever's listening, I want to say something. Nowhere in this conversation am I trying to highlight myself. It's just that over the last 10, 12 years, I've just been part of those conversations, part of those decisions, part of those activities that have happened. And then sometimes I've just been like fortunate to be there, just luck by chance, just by chance I was there and got to witness this. This is, I think I mentioned a word to you earlier, was institutional memory. There is no institutional memory in student spaces on, like, that's something that's been recognized by student activists on campus over and over. And before I go on to like how the Punjabi class developed, I want to mention how some spaces that I was part of, how they came to help us. Um, I was part. It just happened that, so as part of every major ethnic studies program on campus, like whether it's Asian American studies, whether there's the African American studies, whether it's Chicana studies, um, there is a student component to that, and it, everything used to be cross culture center. So cross culture center, like for Aggies, for UC Davis folks, they might recognize Students Community Center on campus now, across from Rock Hall, which used to be called Chem 194. Cross Culture Center was set up in 1989, I believe, or 1990, after a hunger strike by 5 student organizers. And I've met some of them. And next to that is, I think, is the LGBTQIA Center, LGBTQIA plus Resource Center. Then there's the AB 540 Center. So just being around those spaces exposed me to a lot of connections. Under Cross Culture Center at that time, there were 2 or 3 campus climate coordinators, and the one was especially for the MESA, the Middle East and South Asian community. And as part of that, I remember like with the Turban and Hijabathon with the MSA, Muslim Student Association, Maheen Ahmed was the president at that time, and I got to learn a lot from the way that she approaches things. The way I learned a lot from how they build connections on campus. So, and how that helped us down the road is when we went to ASUCD, I think 2017, 18, that we want to get classes started. All these organizations signed on the petition, on the demand, and I was part of the Ethnic and Cultural Affairs Commission for ASUCD. And what you meant, like, we have to stand in solidarity with other communities, like whether it's the Palestinians, whether it's like hate against the Black student diaspora, whether it's hate against the Muslim student diaspora. I think sexual assault on campus was a huge thing back then. You have to stand in solidarity with like every one of them, because there's so much common between your struggles and theirs. So anybody who's listening to me right now, I urge you, I strongly urge you, is to be involved and build those alliances, build those bridges. So so even MESA's student component, I think they were like I think one of our Punjabi students back then, 2012-ish, Gitanjali, which she was instrumental in building that up. And so a lot of this has been done by students. You have to demand from the admin. Admin, unfortunately, like admin has a lot on their plate. So unless you get their attention somehow, they're not gonna like know about your issues. Like, and the more supporters you have, the more you can say diverse or like expansive your coalition is, the better it is.
Yeah.
So like I said, like we had the meeting with I met with Dr. Nicole Ranganaz, right? And then we just started talking about Punjabi class. And then I think fall 2015 or fall 2016 when she launched, when the Punjabi American Digital Archive was launched, I met some other community leaders like Dr. Jasbir Singh Gang. He's very involved in the community in Yuba City, out of Yuba City, and just working with him, and then we held so many meetings. in like early, I think in some point in 2017, we're like, okay, we need to get this Punjabi class started. Like, what do we need for that curriculum, money, and all that stuff? Like, how much money will we need? Like, I think it was like for the endowment, $2 or $3 million. And like, we are having all this meeting with MESA, Middle East and South Asian Studies, and then we're like trying to like develop like a program. And how are we going to launch this? Like, how do you launch the fundraising? And we launched the fundraising by hosting Amarinder Gill on campus. That was October 2017. We felt that Amarinder Gill is probably the best person to sort of like with the best image to start this out. Like I didn't compare to other Punjabi singers.
I think that was the safest and best bet to go with.
I would say the best. Yes, I'm not like safest. It was just like how do we like organize this? And then it was like, all the money that will be raised here will go from the sales, will go to the Punjabi class endowment. So we got off from there, and then from there, like there were other folks from part of me is just blanking out because it's been like, it was like 4 years ago at this point, right? And like, I'm remembering the faces, I'm not remembering the name. I think somebody else I also want to like thank here is like Amar Shergill out of Sacramento. I think he's very involved with the California Democratic Party. He was instrumental and then in helping us set up some connections. So here we were like just thinking about how to develop a program like curriculum. But the more important part was like, how do we convince the admin that this class is needed? So this is where students or like might continue, or like you can say our continuing work with SCA was instrumental with SC and BIPSHI. Is we had petitions signed. I think we had more than one petition signed and sent to the chancellor's office, CCD, dean. Some of the students I want to mention here, I think it was Amanjot Kaur, and then Pavandeep Kaur Gill, I think Avleen Kaur Gill, Gagan Kaur Sandhu, I think she also worked for the MESA office at one point. I think Sabreen Sandhu, I think she was very instrumental in that too. I think we're moving into like, 2017 into 18. Again, these things take time because none of us lived in Davis from the community, right? We would sometimes legit drive to Davis just for a 2-hour meeting and then, drive back home. So and from MESA office, it was Gurjeet Kaur. She was very helpful also, and like kind of like giving us this direction. And then we started approaching different Gurdwara Sahibans, like after the Amrinder Ghosh show, like reaching out to community to San Jose and like other Gurdwara Sahibs. I wasn't like, obviously I didn't personally reach out to everyone, but like I think Dr. Kang was part of this. And you can say there was a fundraiser in Lodi in January 2018. It was organized basically like in a week by Mr. Rex Stutt. I think he's with the San Joaquin Valley Chamber of Commerce. I may be wrong on that. And I met then Gulinder Singh Gill, he's from Sacramento. So they are like, some of them organized this fundraiser like basically overnight, where we actually got to like, meet the community and expand on what we're doing and why we're doing it. We got to speak there. We got exposure in the Punjabi media. More and more community like around California started finding out about this. Reached the Gurdwara Sahiban, a lot of Gurdwara Sahiban. I think 7 Gurdwaras, at least 7 Gurdwaras, I would say, helped us out, and some made monetary donations. I mean, some of this, like I said, I don't remember all of it, or exactly all of it. So I apologize if anyone's listening. They're like, you may skip my name or something. That's not my I'm not trying to do that. So here we're like, coming it from both angles. We have to develop a curriculum. You can't teach a class without a curriculum, and you can't teach a class unless there's a demand for that. So SCA on campus, like that was I think with Pavan, and like it was very instrumental in like getting those petitions signed. And then I think Reena Theada is from Ethnic and Cultural Affairs Commission. I think she was the chair. Again, we have moved into 2018 now, like late 2018, early 2019. She was the chair, and then got the ASU City resolution passed. I think that, and for ASU City resolution to pass, like somebody had to sponsor it. And then, we had a few Punjabi senators at that point. who sponsored it, and a few other senators too. And then other communities, like they signed on, they supported, they said like, we endorse this, like from other communities, other student organizations like MSA, Afghan Student Association, Arab Student Union, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like there were like multiple efforts all happening together. I wasn't at the center of any of all of this. No way. That's why like I'm trying to remember it all. I have my notes here to guide me.
Yeah.
But like, again, this is like a years long process. Like
Yeah.
I want to mention, by the time 2019 hit, I left Davis in 2014. I was no longer a 22, 23-year-old person. I was moving into my late 20s now, right? Like, but still, like, my parents are like, you keep going back for this. I'm like, yeah, because I want to see this through. I want to see this done. And so the other thing that we were thinking is like, how are we gonna, like, it's gonna take us a while to raise all that money. And that's where something that came up was how they teach Spanish. I think it's called Spanish Without Walls. So we took the idea of that, like the curriculum, like they teach it like modules online. It's called one, like basically it's like structured quarter per quarter, like certain 5 modules per quarter. Like we kind of took that idea based, and here something else that really helped us was like how other UCs helped us. UC Santa Cruz, I think Dr. Jakara Singh, he's the chair. He not sure if still the chair, but he was the chair for the program there. And he like UC Santa Cruz like helped us. They provide us facilities to record the modules. Somebody else that came on board by this time, this is like 2019-ish, I think Palvinder Kaur, like she's very active and has been very active in the past in Jakara, but like has been very active in the community around Sacramento. So she was a great asset. And then was Pushpinder Kaur ji and Arshinder Kaur ji. And Pushpinder Kaur ji is the principal of Khalsa School at San Jose, Gurdwara of San Jose. And she has a background in teaching, so she was like able to help with the like they were all able to help with the development of the curriculum, right? And then Dr. Kuldeep Singh from I think he was at San Jose Gurdwara at that time. Now he's the instructor of, and so they were all able to like basically come together. And then Nirvair Singh ji actually did help with the development of the app, the UC Punjabi app. So if you're listening, anybody who's listening, please download the app. You can literally trace on the app, on the screen, how to write a letter in Punjabi. Like Ura just goes like that, Arda goes like that, ED goes like that. So UC Punjabi app, Nirvair Singh ji, he worked a lot, very hard on that. So again, I'm mentioning all these names because this is process moving and if you look back, it's like 2019, 2020, like, then COVID hits. It seems like it's moving slow, but it's also moving really fast because imagine all the vocab that goes into developing the curriculum. So as like 2019 through 2020 came, like we settled on like how to develop the vocab, right? And then I remember Pulvinder and I had a discussion, like we want to do some of the vocab, which may not be very common in Punjabi right now, but it's important to Punjabis in California or in the US, especially climate change. What do you call climate change in Punjabi? What do you call gender neutral in Punjabi? How do you say heterosexual versus homosexual in Punjabi? And what are the words for LGBTQIA identities? Like there was a lot of like discussion. There was a lot of there was vigorous discussion on like should we be introducing a new personally, one thing I'm definitely like not a fan of is in general, not about Punjabi classes, like making up a new word. I think I don't have the background to make up a new word in Punjabi. I think it should be left to the community. So you can say our new words become part of our lexicon, right? There is so much English in our daily vocab. Sometimes it just becomes part of our lexicon, like our daily language. Yeah. So by this time, it's 2020, COVID has hit. We're like, how are we going to record all the modules? And I think we were able to record the modules at UC Santa Cruz using their facilities. And at some modules at UC Davis were recorded, like, in a social distance manner. Yeah. You no longer had the people giving you cues. Like we would practice the modules at home because nobody else could be there because of social distance reasons to actually show you how you're doing it. Like the modules that I got to record, I would record 2 or 3 versions of it. One where I'm speaking faster, one where I'm speaking a little bit slower. I change my tone and inflection, right? Like, because nobody else is going to tell you how you're doing. You are just your own judge at that point.
Yeah.
So you're driving like, to Santa Cruz or Davis or wherever needed. And during, COVID times, like meeting like on Zoom or whatnot. And so it's like we were able to develop more, you can say more enough modules for Punjabi 1 to be launched. And so, it's looking back, a lot of this is like a blur. That's like, but it's like a movie playing in my eyes right now, in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, wow, so many people involved. And, Nicole Ranganath,
Yeah.
she deserves a lot of credit for bringing so many people like making all these connections. I also want to mention, so at one point, like 2019, early 2019, we kind of reached this, I wouldn't say we reached an impasse, but it was more like, we felt like we weren't making as much progress. Like we felt like some assembly, like I think folks from Yuba City and other places, they had some of the assembly members write to the dean or the chancellor's office that this class should start. Why all these holdups? Like why all these admin issues? And we felt like it wasn't working. So I think Mr. Braxton and then Gulendra Singhal and a couple others, they were instrumental in organizing a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor of California, Eleni Kounalakis. I think I should have said her name right. So, I was able to be part of that meeting. Got to meet the Lieutenant Governor of California at the Capitol in Sacramento. So, got talked to her, told her why this is important for us students, for the alumni, these many people. And then she got right on it. She wrote to the chancellors of it, like, why is this being held up? So the point I'm trying to make is like, there were so many alliances on the student side where 500-600 people are signing the petitions. There's so many alliances from the community side too. Oftentimes we hear a community so divided and whatnot, but look at folks coming from like Yuba City, Sacramento, Bay Area, like, Central Valley, people all coming together and pushing for this to happen using their political connections. At the same time, all the UCs, like, I think the UC Irvine has I think Aneet Kaur, she's there now. She's there. I think she's teaching a Punjabi Sikh Studies program or something. And then I think somebody, Anshu Malhotra, I think a couple others, like, everybody from different UCs, like everybody who's a faculty were able to like come together for this. And Ashinder Kaur, like from UC Santa Cruz, she teaches, she taught Punjabi there. All these folks coming together for one goal, that we will have used a Punjabi class. Now, the issue was, if the class is going to be online, I think there are 30 spots per, you can say 30 spots per class per quarter.
Mm-hmm.
15 go to, I think, UC Davis, and then 15 go to all other UCs. If the 15 by UC Davis are not filled out, if there's a wait list from other campuses, then those get filled out first come first serve basis. I think that's how it works out. And the idea that I'm trying to like push is that this all took, it may seem like I'm talking a lot, and I know it did. I gave out a lot of information, and
it's okay.
It may have been like a little difficult to follow at times.
Yeah.
Because we went from 2009
10
to 2020 when the classes started, like 2021. But
and I was just before you keep going, I just wanted to like say, like, it's just like for me to unpack it as I'm sitting here, right? And I hope like the listeners also are like trying to like realize the same things I'm trying to realize right now, like in the moment. But like after like 11 years almost, right, from 2009, even though there was like, let's say slow, it felt slow, but at times it felt fast. And like when you look back on it, you say like the process was actually it was actually pretty fast, like how it came to be. And I just feel like sometimes just like there was multiple people that obviously you were there from when it first kind of started, and then you were there throughout the process. But there's some people that came in, they helped, they did their part, and they helped as much as they could, and then it just kept moving it along and moving it along. And I feel like that sometimes is like the more people like unite, the easier something becomes to push forward. And it's like it shouldn't. I feel like I'm saying something like it's very like high level thinking, but that's like very like base. Like the more people you have united behind something, like the more it's gonna be like something that's actually going to come to pass.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just like you mentioned so many like amazing people's names, and it's just like there's so many other people that you might have missed, or like we just don't know of, or like we just can't think of right now. But
Yeah.
like it's just like there are all those people, like you said, there was 500 to 600 signatures on the petition. Like all those students, each one of those students on that 600-page list, like they were a part of like making this happen. So
So
like them just being there in that capacity was just enough. Like it was needed. So don't
yeah.
think like just because, oh, maybe like this thinking like, oh, maybe a petition's not going to make it go anywhere, like I won't, like no, as much as you can get involved. I know you made this point as well, like get involved as much as you can, but I also like get involved as much as you can, because like you don't know how little of your effort can actually go a long way. And like those 506, like those were just signatures by students that were like, okay, this should happen, or let's petition for this to happen. And like those signatures carried on your work, Harfateh, and your work that you were doing at the time, and also all the others that were working on it at that time. Like that gave you guys the extra push at the time to keep going, because you guys were like, okay, there is an interest, or there is support for this by the students. Because this is like at the end of the day, I mean, like we said, like these are classes that are offered at UC Davis for the students to basically attend. And so it's like, go
these
ahead.
classes are offered to all UC students.
Yeah.
This is a UC Punjabi online program,
Yeah.
right? So it is available to all UC students. So if you're listening and you haven't signed up and you're a current UC student, please do. It may have seemed like I was talking too fast or I was talking too much. And another person to be grateful here for is Chancellor May at UC Davis for his leadership and for acknowledging the need for this. It may seem like that this was a lot of effort, because it was. Like when I say, I still remember the first time I knocked on a door to talk about this. It's fresh in my mind, because even though that was 8.5, 9 years ago, because of all the effort of all those hundreds of students, student leaders, community activists, community leaders, community organizers since then, organizations like Jakara, whose connections outside of Davis help us talk to other people, build those connections. That's why this class is here after almost a decade of work, if you think about it. And in general, like commit to a task, like commit to an aim, commit to a goal. Like it's really easy. I think we'll discuss more on this later too. It's really easy to especially like because when I started, MySpace was the thing, right? Uh, Social media wasn't this big.
Yeah.
We saw the rise of Snapchat, Instagram, even Facebook. We saw how it made it so easy for us to connect to people. And I want to say, like, if anybody has questions or they want to just discuss over this, like, feel free. If you can find me on social media or something, feel free to reach out. But social media, it made it a lot easier for us to organize. At the same time, every person who contributed this, like you said, by signing, by just showing up, by just being there, you mattered and your contribution mattered. We are here because of you, and you will have my most heartfelt gratitude for the rest of my life, because I know like how much this means to. I meet alumni from 20, 30, 40 years ago from UC Davis, and they're like, wow, you guys have done this. We always wished this would happen. Taking a task and committing to it, and then setting a goal like we want to make this happen. Success takes a long time, just perseverance, and the biggest gratitude goes to Akal Purkh Vaheguru. If it wasn't for the Kirpa Vaheguru, it wasn't for the blessings, it wasn't for the fortune of keeping going, right, and meeting all these new people. It was all Guru Maharaj's Kirpa that we met all the people involved, like got to connect with each other. And like you said, some people helped out, and then they went like they were involved for a short time. Everybody played a role in this. And another person is like Mesa's director now, I think Dr. Sudipta Sain. He's it's pretty big expert on South Asian stuff. South Asian studies, I would say. So he's like, everybody has helped out. Like people who were involved on campus 10, 11 years ago, who have long graduated, I haven't seen them in 8, 9 years. Like the spark, they ignited, that's kept us going. And it kept everybody going. And I think like I'm just getting the opportunity to like talk on behalf of everybody who's worked on this. So a lot of alliances on campus, a lot of alliances outside of campus. Like, let's get together as a community. Let's make positive change. It doesn't matter. Like, take a task. Like, champion the cause of the community. Like, there will be setbacks. You know, there are there like, you know, issues and grievances, legitimate or not, in the community? Yes, you may not want to work with somebody, but when you're on campus, remember, we're only like 400 or 500 people on campus at max. So if stay together, like work together for the benefit of the community. I wasn't part of this, so I could attend the class. So down the road, my nephews and nieces, or like other friends' nephews and nieces, or their kids down the road, their cousins, they can attend the courses. That it's for them, it's for the future of the month, for the community. So stay committed, stay focused, and work with like-minded folks. I mean, have faith. I think I kind of want to talk about like how the class is structured now.
Yeah.
We have Punjabi 1, 2, 3, I believe. Things like it's all just still part of the beginner courses. I think Punjabi and 1V, 2V, 3V. I think that's how it goes like that. I'm not familiar with like completely with the, but you should look it up. And I apologize if I say anything wrong here, if I mess anything up. But our goal would be like in next. One of our like goal is to maintain enrollment. So if you're a UC student, you're listening, and you haven't taken Punjabi yet, or even you have taken Punjabi like at Khalsa school or something in the back. In the past, please take it. Most of our students at UC they used to take Hindi, and I know Hindi just pretty much as well as I know Punjabi, having been born and raised in Punjab. But that doesn't mean that we should be learning Punjabi. So please, we don't want the enrollment to drop, because when enrollment drops, admin is going to be like, why is the enrollment dropping? That means people don't want Punjabi. That's the issue that happens with some of the other Punjabi programs. I think Sac State a couple of years ago. With the moment enrollment drops, the community is like, oh my God, why is this happening? Like, we shouldn't wait for a crisis to act.
Yeah.
We should be continuously committing. So share with your friends on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you Snapchat, wherever you can. Convince them, like, please ask them to take this course, because it's important we keep going. We've been, I think this is the third quarter it's being offered now. We need to show consistent enrollment. So down the road, UC will see that this is integral to the growth of UC, and they will keep funding it. I think I'll pause here and let you take over.
No, I just want to say a couple of things in terms of, I think the enrollment part is very crucial, because I've seen it's like things when the admins, they look at numbers. When they see low numbers, they're gonna obviously start saying that there's got to be some change or something. Like, they're gonna start questioning why. And I feel like just at UC Davis, like at first, like I didn't know that there was a Punjabi class being developed. Even last year, I like towards like, I think it was like winter, towards the end of my winter quarter, which was like second quarter, is like when I started to actually hear about it a little bit more. So it's just like, even though it was like at that time I was in my own coursework, so I couldn't get into it, unfortunately. But it's just like, I feel like it's not even, I saw recently at Berkeley, they're also doing some initiative in terms of like Punjabi class. And I feel like that's like, I don't want to say it's stemming from, but like it very much is like, you started at one place. Obviously there's a large population of Punjabis almost like at every UC, right? I know like Davis, we have one of the bigger ones, but I know like yeah, to hype ourselves up, and that's one of the reasons why I did pick UC Davis, was because of the population of like the Punjabis here. It just like made me feel a little bit more welcomed, and a little bit more felt like at home. It was a little bit easier to come to Davis than it would be to like any other UC for me personally. And it is also closer to home, so that's also
Yeah.
a big plus, right?
So
But
I also want to mention that there's a class on Sikhi that will be taught in first course on Sikhi, more focus on Sikhi will be taught in person at Davis, I think in winter quarter. So that'll be winter 2022.
okay.
The
So
reason
that would
that
be our
ultimately,
next quarter that would start. So this
yeah.
upcoming winter quarter.
So I think in right now, as of I think classes begin this week, and Punjabi 1 and Punjabi 3 is being offered, and I think Sikhi class is being offered. I'm not sure if it's this quarter or next quarter, but or like fall quarter or winter quarter. But the reason that class is even being offered, is even being taught, they're putting money into it, is because there's a demand for it, because they recognize this. And we take a step back and just look at like Punjabi's future in California as a language in general. Punjabi is heavily spoken, like second or third most spoken language throughout the valley, from Yuba City down to Kern County. Why? The reason we've been a bit, there are some school districts which teach Punjabi, but they're not a lot. The emphasis, the focus that we saw from census to list yourself as Sikh or something, as Sikh, was to demonstrate we have the numbers, so we can take those numbers, go to the local school district and say, our language needs to be represented here. So we can have teachers who teach Punjabi, like our folks, apne, hai na?
Yeah.
Who are working on this. So you see, this community cycle keeps going, and that pipeline will feed the UC students. So UC will see so many people who've taken Punjabi are coming. We need to maintain Punjabi on campus. Excuse me. We need to build more on it. Maybe like down the road, if we have, again, building just the first beginner level Punjabi took like at least directly took almost 2 years of effort. Building an intermediate one will be maybe a little bit more easy or not. We don't know, but hopefully we can like build that in the next couple of years. And maybe one of our goals is to offer Punjabi class from UC in summer, so non-UC folks can take it to San Jose. So like state university students, community college students, they can take it for UC credit. Even high school students. Again, that's our goals. Like we have lofty ambitions. We're not stopping here, but the only way we can keep going is if we can maintain that enrollment in current Punjabi classes being offered.
Yeah, and I think that's it's very good to hear that this is like, because sometimes what happens is when we do achieve a goal, that goal is like the only goal that it's in the mindset. So like when that happens, it stops, right? There's no like what's the next thing, right? And some people just and like for some, like I know like there's already a class like this focused strictly on Sikhi or like mostly on Sikhi. That's already the next step. Like that was already taking the next step. And you can already see that like, look, it took all these years to get to the point where we could launch the Punjabi class, the 1, 2, and 3. And now within the year of those being offered, we're already going into more classes and more in-depth classes. So it's just like once you have your foot through the door, like it's much easier. That process becomes a little bit easier, and you can grow a lot faster once like the hard work of like getting established is done. And I feel like that's all credit that goes to all the people that have come before, like yourself included, and all the others that you've mentioned, and also all the others that, again, like I said, are not being mentioned, but like all you guys, like we think like the people, like especially me now, the current student, like we thank you guys for all the work you got. I mean, like you look at you, like you graduated in 2014, and even 7 years later, now you're still taking initiative, and you're joining me and taking an hour out of your time, like your personal time, to talk to me about these classes, and an initiative that you wanted to have happen and you wanted to see through after you graduated. And I feel like that's something like some people, like they're when they're at a campus, they only think about like the 4 years they're there, or like the 5 years that they're there, that the minimum time that they have. But like your example goes to show like you can also keep giving back to your campus, even though you've graduated, even though you've left. So don't think that you have only this time frame to have something work, because you can start something, even if you just start something from scratch the first year you're there. As it builds, even if you do graduate, some like if it's something that's bigger than just what something you want, people will get on board and it will drive forward. It's like it'll drive it. Some other people will get interested and drive it forward with you. So I feel like it's just like, again, like last episode, I want to go back to those that did catch our last episode. I was talking to Gerline, who was a graduate of Antelope High School now, and I went to Antelope High School. And funny enough, you mentioned Balvinder. Balvinder is one of the biggest reasons why I joined Jakara, and I am still part of Jakara, and I do so much. So she always pushed me to join, and push me to like my next, like to get better, to push me to like become more open about myself. And I think that like just has led me to become and just grown like over the years, even though like after she left Jakarta, like I still was able to keep those like lessons and other stuff that she taught me. But like when she came back to Sacramento back in 2017, like nobody knew what Jakarta was in our area, in the Sacramento area, especially like where we lived. But she was very much determined to bring it to all of our high school campuses and start SHSS, which is our Sikh honors and service clubs at our high schools through Jakarta movement. So those are like very instrumental now, because of like they're just every single year the new students that are evolved and they come apart, they just build and build and build. And even though like the first year that I was a part of it was unfortunately my senior year, so it was my last year there. So like we were able to do only so much, because again we were trying to figure out like what can we do, because we were still a brand new club to the high school and we were brand new to the area as Jakarta as a whole. So we were just always like, what can we do? What things can we like not do? And it was just like figuring those things, and actually doing stuff was very difficult for us, because it was just like we were just trying to figure out like the do's and don'ts. And even though we did like a lot of work, still like we were able to do so much work. Like that was a foundation that was given to like the next people, and then then the class after that, and then the class after that, and like it just kept growing afterwards. And it's just like, if you go back to it, like if our initial class didn't had started anything, just know like how much it would have been on the next class to do something, and or the next class to start something. So it's just like, I think like you going back, and then you said like it was a journey of like 10 years almost, from 2009 all the way up to now with 10 to 12 years. I just feel like even like you knocking on the door and having that first conversation in 2012, I believe that's when you said, or when was it? 2012?
Late 2012, early 2013.
Yeah. So like you just having that like conversation, which like I know like you memorize it, right? But like that was very much just a conversation you wanted to go in there and just have about an idea that you have, right? And look at how like that was such a small part thinking back about it, but that was such a momentous part, that to a point where you think it was just yesterday, right? You feel as though it was just yesterday. So it's just like even the smallest of steps that are taken have a very much like giant leap for the next person to take, and it allows them to take that step much easier, because you took the smaller step for them to take the larger step. So I just like, that's something I wanted to just have our listeners a little bit think about. It's just, again, like those that are UC students or college students that are listening, it's just like you on your campus this year. I know like the school years for CSU folks has already started, and for most UCs has started too. But like this is like this year, like don't take it for granted. Like I know last year because of Zoom is a little bit more difficult, but this year you're back on campus. If you have something you want to do, go out there and make it happen. Even if it's not like it won't happen your first year there, or maybe it's your last year, maybe you're a senior. But if you start something, it might happen eventually, and you're going to look back at it and be like, that's something that initiative that I wanted to start, and I started it in some capacity, and look at all these years later, it actually happened. So that's just like a couple of takeaways that I want I took away myself, but I also want like the viewers to take away. And before Harfateh, you start, I just wanted to mention for any high schoolers that are listening in, or any grad school applicants here in a little bit, or even transfer students that might be applying to transfer. We Jakara has a program called Sikya, which is where you're paired up. Applicant is paired up with a mentor, and that mentor helps you write your applications, write your statements. They are very much there to help you through the whole process. So if you do want to be involved in that, please check out the jakara.org website, and you can follow. It says on programs, you can follow to where it says Sikya, and then you'll go to the homepage, and then you can sign up there, or you can become. And especially if you're not applying, we do need mentors as well. So if you want to be a mentor to help somebody get into their dream college, if you want to help somebody get into their dream graduate program, right? You can also apply and do that, which is, I think it's you're giving back to your community and giving back to like kids that are trying to make their dreams happen, right? So that is a little of a advertisement that I wanted to put in there. Another thing is for people that are at JMC UCD or at UC Davis that might be listening to this, there will be a general meeting October 5th at 7 p.m. I believe. I think the location is, if you go to SCA's Instagram page, you can find the flyer with the date and the time and the location. So that's usually a general meeting where all SICK organizations, they do like a presentation from 5 to 7 minutes, introducing their board, introducing or saying like what their goals are for this year, like what their visions are for this year. JMC will be there, so we're looking forward to meeting all of you guys and seeing all of you guys. If you guys don't keep up with our JMC IG, we recently posted a story about me saying I was your PSA chair for this upcoming year. So I'm very excited to help lead this club and lead our direction towards a better and just help give back to the community here at Davis and also the larger Punjabi community in this area. So that was those were a couple things I wanted to make sure people knew. But Harfateh, I wanted to talk a little bit more about, like, I know we talked a little bit about before about like other initiatives that you wanted to touch base on a little bit in this episode. And I just feel like, again, if there's any like other closing remarks or like other remarks you want to say about like the class, I know like, so if again, these classes are being offered fall, winter, and spring, Punjabi 1, 2, and 3. And there will be a class more focused on Sikhi that will be coming either the winter quarter or the next quarter over. So definitely, if you are interested in that, like just keep up with when you're registering for classes, look for that. But Harfateh, is there anything else you want to maybe touch base on with that before we move on to any other initiatives that you want to talk about?
I want to say follow the Instagram page of UC Punjabi. The handle is called the UC Punjabi, PUNJABI. Wow. Sorry, I've been talking for a while today. And I apologize, listeners, if you're tired of hearing my voice. Gurinder, I just want to say that I came to US as a 16-year-old. I started high school as a junior year. I did not even know how to write an essay. Like, to end up at UC Davis a couple years later, it wouldn't have happened without the help of a lot of community friends and like family friends, as well as friends from other communities that I made at high school. The learning curve was steep. It was all Guru Maharaj's Kirpa, call books, like Bent Shukrana for that. And looking back, sometimes I think, what if we started on this path earlier than 2012, 13, maybe around 2010, 11? Maybe things would have happened sooner. Maybe things would have been different. What if we were more active on campus? What if we didn't do this or do that? Like, there are lots of coulda, woulda, shoulda, yes. You can make a lot of change with the time that you have, even if this is your last quarter, if this is your last year. If you're alumnus to any education institution which has considerable Punjabi presence, you can talk to them about setting up financial aid, like setting up scholarships. Everyone has their own criteria. There are so many ways to contribute. and just make that positive change. Just exact that change, that impact that you can make is like six are always supposed to be, like one versus of a luck, right? Don't be daunted by the magnitude of the challenge. Just try to do your part. A lot of avenues on campus, a lot of SSAs. If you're part of any SSA, SCA, any UC, JMCs, any other organizations, try to bridge the gap, any gap, ideological or otherwise, that might exist. Because yes, there's a lot of divisions in the community. But think about all the folks from different parts of California who helped, all the different Gurdwara committees who helped, all the different UCs, all the UCs who helped out with this, who did grants for this or like provided support and whatnot. This is a collaborative effort, and this is a lesson in that if, as a community together, we can advance if we stay united. There are a million reasons to, like divide the community, yes, but don't let one or two bad experiences be the reflection of the entire community. We're more than that. We're bigger than that. And our goal is bigger than that. So I really want to just focus on that. Like, I'm not sure like what the next steps will look like. Hopefully we can build intermediate and advanced Punjabi. Hopefully we can set up an endowment. Hopefully we can set up a chair, whatnot, like some of the other UCs have. Hopefully, but one step at a time. We can only do this collaboratively, and all the community organizations, all the Gurdwaras, like places like Jakara and every other place, everyone who attended a concert, everyone attended an event in support of this, you have my sincere gratitude. All the students I mentioned, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. All the people who signed the petitions, from the core of my heart, thank you. And for what we can go going forward, I think we are looking to expand the Punjabi American Digital Archive, look at the contribution the Punjabi American women had made to the community in the Valley, focusing on that. And like you mentioned Plavinder, I think she's an amazing leader, even through Jakara, the first time I talked with Jakara folks was only 3 or 4 years ago about this. So sometimes I feel like I got a late start on that. But thanks to everybody, and thanks for everybody who has helped this, made this happen. And think about all the translations that were put out by Jakara and other organizations during COVID about or election materials. Most of the Valley has ballots in Punjabi available, or help in Punjabi available. More parts of the Bay Area have sample ballots in Punjabi available. That wouldn't have happened without the efforts of a lot of folks, a lot of community organizers with Jakara, outside of Jakara, other people who consistently kept showing up with the pressure on the registrar's offices and everything. Use those resources. Use those resources. Have your parents use those resources. Even if your parents understand English perfectly, try to use the Punjabi resources. We have to show utilization of these. Otherwise, they'll just be like, oh, nobody's using them, so why are we putting money into this? Same thing, go to Punjabi classes, and continue showing up. Showing up is the hardest. Keeping going is the hardest. 10 years ago, I didn't think we would be here. Obviously, the format of class has changed, has evolved a little bit. It's online now, but take each win as it comes. Keep moving forward. Stay united. Stay together, and remember the bigger goal is to serve the Panth, to serve the community, and that's why we are here. I'm not sure what else you wanted to talk about, but main thing is if you're a UC, please stay in the Punjabi club class, spread the word. We need to show consistent enrollment in the class so we can build off more off that foundation.
Yeah, and I think again, I think what you said, one of the biggest things I want to highlight is for for a lot of us, showing up is the difficult part. We would think that up until now was the difficult part. No. Sustaining it is now going to be the hardest part, because if we don't sustain it, just keeping Harfateh just broke down in a quick summary as fast as he could, in the past hour. like the summary of like how this classes came to be, like the very quickest summary that he could give about it, right? But he just summarized almost 12 years of work and dedication by so many people. And if we don't sustain it, like for the whoever, like for the people that it's built there for, right? For all the incoming UC students, and not just at Davis, but all across the UCs. Like these classes were made in, not for Harfateh. He didn't make it for himself. He graduated back in 2014, right? He made these he worked on these classes, or wanted to make these happen because of us, for the next people, for the next, then the people that came after him could have this opportunity. And just showing up again, like just being registered to the class, taking the class. If maybe you need 12 units and you don't know what class to take to fulfill those 12 units, hey, take the Punjabi class, fill your 12 unit requirement for your financial aid or full-time student, or however. But like that's a quick way, instead of scrambling for a different class. Like there is a class that very much is in your wheelhouse of something that it should interest you. I know, like for me, like I can speak Punjabi very fluently, but I have my struggles in reading and writing, and so that's why it's just like for all of us, we all have our own struggles with trying to understand Punjabi. And I know, like for me specifically, like having to learn two languages simultaneously growing up, like made like a dent. It was a bit made very hard to try to focus on one or the other. Like in school, obviously, I had to focus on English solely, but like at home, it was Punjabi solely. So it was like I had to learn two languages at the same time. And I feel like that for me was like I wasn't able to learn as much as I wanted in Punjabi as I wanted to, just because I had to learn English because of school, and had to get farther in school, right, with English. So that's something that for my personal journey, right? But like everybody's journey is their own. So that's why I was just like, please, if you do and you have the like capacity to take this class and want to take this class, please do, because it will show again, it will show that there's interest, even though like even after a year, like there's not just initial interest, there's interest years on, instead of just the first year. So please, again, like if you have throughout this quarter, the next 2 quarters, if you do have a slot open for a class, take it, and support it, and just be thankful that this actually exists for us, because 2 years ago it didn't exist for UC students. So that's what I just wanted to say at the end about that.
And hundreds of people have worked on this. Hundreds of people have contributed into this. I'm just a small part of that. But on behalf of all of them, I'm thankful to them. But on behalf of all of them, I strongly urge you, please support this. Keep the momentum going, because that's what we need.
Yeah.
And remember, commit to a task. We got to show up, and it's all Guru Maharaj's kirpa in the end that this happens. So shukrana to the community, shukrana to Guru Maharaj, Kalpak Vaiguru, for making this happen.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, I know you keep saying like you were a very small part of the whole process, but I just want to say like thank you to you personally for all your work and dedication. And like I said, like you graduated 7 years ago, and look, you're joining me 7 years later after graduating UC Davis to join me for an hour-ish of your own personal time. So again, thank you for coming on, and thank you for all the hard work that you've done on this. And I would love to have you again in the future again, because there's just so much more to unpack in this realm and this conversation that I think 1 hour doesn't do enough justice for it. So again, down the road, I would love to have you come back and unravel this a little bit more, because I feel like even though we unpacked so much, it might have gone over a couple people's head. So like I just want to like revisit this down the road again. And again, Harfateh, you said like if anybody is interested to have more individual contact with you and talk to you about it, like they can find you on social medias. Like I know you're on Instagram. I know I saw you're on Twitter as well. So if you, again, like I said, if you want to have your follow-up discussions with Harfateh himself, you know where to find him. But in terms of social medias, I did want to say that, so the podcast will have its own separate Instagram account now. So the account is called the JMC Chronicles. It's just the same as the title of the actual podcast, and that's the account name. So please go and follow that. It will be linked in the video description of this, and it will be linked on all the platforms, so you can easily go on there and click it. That is where we'll be posting more updates about the podcast itself, and also uploading direct snippets from each episode and uploading it there for your own enjoyment and your own. So you don't have some. I know some people can't sit or listen to something for a whole hour. So that's why that will be there. It will be a great resource for you to hear 7-8 minute, and maybe that 7-8 minute clip makes you go watch the whole thing, right? So please go and follow that, keep up to date with that. It'll be linked in the description of this YouTube video. And also, again, check out the JMC UCD IG, because again, we'll be giving a lot of updates about JMC, especially at the start of the year is usually where a lot of information is given out for general meetings in the beginning of the year and other meetings that we will be holding and other events that will be coming up very shortly. Again, like I said, I apologize for this episode being a week late. Again, you can see that I have changed places, so it's been hectic for myself.
Gurinder, I also want to add that you all inspire me so much. You know, if we didn't see, like, I wish we had even a quarter of the dedication and commitment that you all show at such a young age. Like the current crop of students that I've had talked to over the last 4 or 5 years, man, y'all are like amazing ideas, big ideas, amazing ideas. So you follow those dreams. Y'all go out and make those dreams come true, whether for the community, for your families, for anybody, with your own dreams and everything. Y'all are like really inspiring folks, and this class is not just for our future families, you can say nephews, nieces, kids, whatnot, but also it's a tribute to the generations of ancestors who came before us, the ones who survived difficult times in 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th centuries, but also the ones who work hard today in the fields, driving trucks, or whether you're working in a white-collar job. This is a tribute to the generations of Punjabis who will come next. And hopefully we can keep going with the support of the community, with support of you all. I'm just humbled to have had the honor and a distinct privilege of having worked on this cause. Again, a small part, but deeply, deeply grateful to Kalpur Kavaidu and for everyone's love, everyone's help.
Yeah. This was I know I've touched about this before to our podcast listeners, but like this podcast, I had this idea in 2019, so almost 2 years ago, was when I had this idea of a podcast, and not until November of 2020 was when we actually launched the podcast. So it took me well over a year to get all the behind the scenes stuff to work and everything, but eventually we got to the point where we were able to launch it. And not only have we successfully launched it, but now we are 11 episodes in. We also have our own personalized IG account now, and we're also, it still blows my mind, but like we're all on all your amazing apps, Spotify, Google, Apple, and on YouTube. So wherever you like to get your information, wherever you like to get your podcasts, we are there. And also, like I said, if you're ever wanting to maybe do an episode, want to join on an episode, or even discuss and shape an episode, please contact the new Instagram page of the podcast, the JMC Chronicles. That way you can get direct contact with me, and we can make it happen. Because again, like I said, I am the only, you see my face constantly, but I don't want to take all the credit for this. I allow every member of the Sanghas that wants to be a part of it to come and be a part of it, and they're the people that make it happen, and they're the ones that keep it going every single month. And guests, like amazing guests like Harfateh and all the guests that have come on all all these episodes have made these episodes just better and better, and have made me into a better and better person and a better host. So I would just say thank you to all the guests. Thank you to all the Sangath out there, all the audience members. And one final thank you again to Harfateh. And with that, I would want to say, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.